Welcome to Octane Vein, a brand new channel all about cars, builds, events, online racing and everything in between. There's so much to cover in this first series. I'll be bringing you regular updates of the project cars. I'll be following the progress of a drag racing team as they push their historic dragster to the next level, trying to break into the 8-second quarter mile. There'll be plenty of track action as I develop the Octane Vein racing car, and I'll also be catching up with a couple of different drift teams throughout the season. There's all that and so much more, but until then, let me show you around the garage. Now this first car I've owned since 2015. I wasn't actually looking for one of these, but it came up in my search results and I just fell in love with it. The engine under the bonnet of this car is a motorsport legend in its own right. They built over 3.5 million of them over a period of almost 30 years. They were put into everything from family saloons, touring cars, Le Mans cars, and even Formula 1 cars, where they had over 1,400 horsepower. Now there's not many engines that can have that claim to fame, so I'm sure you've guessed what it is already. And the pointy bonnet has probably given you a clue as to what car it is. It is, of course, a classic BMW. This E21 left the factory in 1983 with BMW's legendary 4-cylinder M10 engine under the bonnet. Badged a 316, it did in fact have the same 1.8 litre engine that was fitted to the 318. However, it had a Pierberg carburettor instead of fuel injection, and it produced 89 brake horsepower. The 316 was the second lowest model in the range, and as such received disc brakes with a single piston caliper on the front and drum brakes on the rear. This particular E21 came with 3 optional factory upgrades: a 5-speed manual gearbox, a rev counter, and a manual tilt-slide metal sunroof. However, it doesn't have ABS or power steering. As the car sits at the moment, it has the following modifications: an MSA spec 6-point weld-in roll cage, FIA rated OMP bucket seat and 6-point harness, OMP 3-spoke steering wheel, twin Weber carburettor and K&N air filter, an aftermarket 2-inch exhaust and performance back box, fully adjustable Tyne coilover suspension, front discs from an E21 323, 4-pot front brake calipers from a Volvo 240, aftermarket wheels, yellow tinted Hella spotlights, and the interior has been stripped and all the sound deadening removed. All the rust has been cut out of the chassis and replaced with new metal. Now there's a long list of mods that I've got planned for this car. My ultimate goal for the E21 is to get it to a state where it could compete in the Le Mans Classic. Now I realise I'm a very, very long way off that, but the way I see it is you have to have a goal, and having a goal gives you a direction. Everything I do to this car is going to be taking me one step closer to achieving that goal. Will it ever see Le Mans? Well, we'll all just have to wait and see, but I've cracked the first hurdle, and that was fabricating the MSA spec roll cage. Now, I'll admit to you, I'm an engineer and I'm a bit of a geek at heart, so I do have the rest of those steps laid out in a spreadsheet. I'm not going to be going into that today. The next episode is specifically about the E21, so I'll cover those mods, plus what I'm currently doing to the car, because unfortunately it's off the road due to a catastrophic failure on the way to the MOT at the end of last year. So make sure you check that episode out. I'll put a link below and that'll be available very, very shortly. But for now, let's move backwards in the garage and forwards by about a decade. This next car is another motorsporting icon. It's from a period that is considered the golden age of British touring car racing, and that is of course the super touring era of the 1990s. Now there's many reasons why the super tourers were so popular, but in my opinion the main one is that the manufacturers still truly believed in the mantra of win on Sunday, sell on Monday. With this in mind, they knew the importance of getting good results on track, and could therefore justify the ever-increasing budgets that it took to develop these cars. For example, Renault even employed the Formula One team Williams to develop their Laguna. Now I could stand up here all day and talk about the Super Tourers. They're the cars that I remember watching when I was growing up. They're shrouded in myth and rumours of legendary rule bending, plus they were probably the most advanced touring cars while still looking almost identical to the factory standard car. I think that's one of the reasons that the Super Tourers hold such a special place in the touring car history books. Now I'll definitely be coming back to talk more about the Super Tourers, but for now I'm sure you're wondering what car is under the cover. Now you may be able to make out this angular wing, so that rules out the likes of the Cavalier and the Mondeo, the BMW E36, the Laguna, and you can see that it's not an estate. So in my eyes that leaves only one car that it could be, and that is of course the 1994 championship winning Alfa 155. This car started out as a top-of-the-range 2.5 litre V6 with a rare cream leather interior. However, unfortunately, it's lived up to Alfa's unreliability reputation and it no longer has that original engine. Now that's a bit of a double-edged sword, because if this had been a matching numbers car, it would be very valuable. However, it would also mean that I wouldn't have been able to afford to buy it in the first place. And to be honest, it's been upgraded with a 3 litre V6 from an Alfa 164, so that's a pretty good consolation prize. I didn't buy this car as an investment, so I'm not too bothered that it doesn't have the original engine. I've always loved the Alfa 155 and they don't come up for sale very often, especially the V6. So when I saw this one on eBay, I actually bought it blind. I didn't even go to see it. Now, I'm a pretty calculated guy. I've never bought a car blind on eBay before, but that is the attraction of these and their rarity. And I thought I'm just going to have to take the gamble. For a blind buy on eBay, this car is actually in very good condition. It needs a little bit of welding to the boot, but the rest of the car is in really good nick from a bodywork point of view. However, unfortunately, the 3 litre engine also has its problems. It's actually got a blown head gasket, so the first job that I'm going to have to do is pull the engine and gearbox out and get those heads skimmed and put new head gaskets on them. While I've got the engine out, I'll do a load of other jobs as well, but the plan for this car is to keep it relatively standard, have it as a road-going car. I do have a couple of long-term plans for the car and I'll reveal them later in the series, but my main focus is just to get it back on the road, get it reliable, so I can enjoy it the way it was supposed to be. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to the channel and the 2 main projects that I'll be featuring. Don't forget, there's a whole range of content that I'll be covering, including the drifting and the drag racing that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. Plus, I'll be introducing you to cycle karting, which is basically what you'd get if you crossed vintage cars with lawnmower racing. It really is so much fun, and it's possibly one of the cheapest ways of getting into motorsport. So watch this space, because I'll be bringing you details of how to get involved. I'll also be releasing a series of technical guides on preparing your car for road and track use, which will help you optimize the performance of your car and hopefully save you money. There's also the sim rigs that I built out of leftover roll cage tube and the old bucket seats from the BMW, so you can catch me racing online on various different platforms. Now that's not everything that I've got planned for the channel, but I'm not going to go into the other items here. They'll just be available as and when they're ready throughout the series. But before I go, I do want to give a massive shout out to Practical Performance Car magazine for featuring both the BMW and the Alfa in the September issue. Now I submitted the article to them at the beginning of lockdown, which was well over 18 months ago, and I hadn't heard anything back from them, so I assumed they didn't want to use it. So seeing it in print as a 5-page feature in the Reader's Cars section totally blew me away. It really was so good to see it in actual print. So thanks again for watching. Please do like and subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me and it will help me grow the channel. This is the first time I've done anything like this, so it really has been quite a steep learning curve, learning how to do everything myself. But I'm really enjoying it and I'm looking forward to releasing the next episode, which is specifically about the E21. So make sure you check that out. I'll put a link below when that's available. But until then, stay safe and look after each other.